Hello and welcome back to the MMA Bar. Today we're going to discuss 10 of the most gruesome injuries that fighters have suffered in MMA, who they faced, and how the fights played out. MMA is unlike any other combat sport. Injuries are bound to happen in the brutal world of MMA. Blood, broken noses, and cringe-worthy swellings are a common sight in most matches, yet there are other injuries that stood out and are a tad more painful and gruesome. These injuries are sometimes caused by the careless behavior of fighters that unfortunately even led to the end of a handful of careers. Fighters like Frank Mir had a no-nonsense approach, and the fighters ultimately fell victims to terrible circumstances. MMA isn't a sport for the faint-hearted, with fighters prone to suffering horrific cuts, broken limbs, and concussions inside the cage. Some injuries were so bad that they just can't be unseen. So, in no particular order, let's do a recap of the top 10 MMA fighters who got seriously hurt. Number 10. Chris Weidman's leg break at UFC 261 vs Uriah Hall. Disaster struck at UFC 261 as Chris Weidman suffered one of the worst injuries in UFC history. Just 17 seconds after the start of the fight, as he tried to throw the first strike of the bout by landing a low kick, his leg folded and he underwent a gruesome double leg break. Upon impact, Weidman's leg snapped and he crumbled back with the entire arena aghast at what happened. The footage of his swinging lower leg was so disgusting that it was only twice replayed on the broadcast, even though it was clear from his pre-surgery x-ray that both the fibula and tibia bones were broken. He survived one of the worst UFC injuries and recovered. The day after his surgery, he revealed that he could not walk without crutches for 8 weeks, and his process of recovery took long, between 6 and 12 months, to fully resume his mixed martial arts training. Yet he proved his resiliency by showing the possibility of coming back from such kinds of injuries, since as of mid-June he gradually returned to light training just 7 weeks following the injury. Number 9. Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira's arm break against Frank Mir. Although in their first match, Frank could simply beat Big Nog with a barrage of punches, the rematch ended viciously, to the point that spectators cringed watching the replay of the shocking event. Mir got Minotauro in a tight Kimura, and the legendary Nog was reluctant to tap. An infuriated Mir twisted the arm and broke it inside the ring. The audience gasped by watching the replay of the freak incident as the referee stopped the fight. The submission was dubbed by UFC President Dana White as the submission of the century. As Nogueira could hopefully recover from his arm injury in less than a year, he came back to the octagon competing 4 times. Yet Junior Dos Santos avenged Nogueira as he smashed Frank Mir in his next bout. Number 8. Evangelista Santos' shattered skull vs Michael Page. Santos took on the charismatic Michael Venom Page at Bellator 158, held at London's O2 Arena. This was a great fight that ended in a gruesome knockout after Page landed a flying knee right to his forehead. The severity of the knockout was such that Santos was rushed to the hospital after the fight. The impact of the blow shattered his skull, and Santos was screaming in pain after he was hit with the vicious knee. Chris Cyborg, his ex back then, later posted an x-ray of her ex-husband which revealed a detailed view of the impact. His forehead was cracked, and doctors were reluctant to operate on him as it could have caused permanent brain damage. The injury proved to be career-ending as Santos drew curtains on his 50-fight career. He has never competed professionally after the injury, as he decided not to risk his health. Number 7. Mark Hominick's hematoma vs Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, who is widely regarded as the greatest featherweight of all time, made his first title defense against Mark Hominick at UFC 129. What was startling about this fight was that Mark Hominick suffered severe hematoma during the clash. The hematoma on his head was so swollen that it looked like another small head growing out of his head. Joe Rogan described the huge tennis ball-sized blue swelling above Hominick's right eye as a second head on commentary. Incredibly, the doctor did not stop the fight instantly and allowed Hominick to carry on, but he eventually lost to the Brazilian. Number 6. John Jones's toe dislocation vs Chael Sonnen. Jones was a 25-year-old beast, and Sonnen was a bit of a journeyman 36-year-old, albeit a well-respected one. The pair were both coaches on season 17 of The Ultimate Fighter, so a rivalry had been brewing for several weeks before they met. Jones smashed him in the first round with a TKO victory, but he gruesomely dislocated his big toe in the process. Jones was inexplicably able to conduct a post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, as his toe was fixed, with Jones visibly in pain. Number 5. Robbie Lawler vs. Rory MacDonald. The fight was one for the ages. At UFC 189, a never-before-seen brawl broke out between Robbie Lawler and Rory MacDonald. The former welterweight champion and MacDonald engaged in a grueling slugfest that left both fighters bloodied and injured. In the end, Lawler came out victorious as Rory was knocked down by a series of powerful punches, and the veteran Big John McCarthy had to step in to stop the fight. The severity of MacDonald's injuries was the major talking point in the aftermath of the bout. His face looked like a balloon. There was more bad news though underneath all the swelling, as an x-ray of his nose showed that a part of it was hit so hard that it detached itself from the skull. Number 4. Corey Hill's leg break vs. Dale Hart. The late Corey Hill was the first fighter to break their leg inside the octagon. Moments after the start of the second round of his clash with Dale Hart, Hill had a hard leg kick checked by his opponent. His shin shattered upon impact, although the break was worsened when he tried to stand on the injured leg. Hill collapsed and shuffled on the canvas in a bid to avoid follow-up shots. The ref didn't initially see the break, but eventually stopped the bout after UFC commentator Joe Rogan repeatedly screamed, "Stop the fight." The bout was Hill's last in the UFC, although he did successfully return to action 2 years later at Raging Wolf 6. Hill fought a further 11 times, racking up 4 victories and suffering 7 defeats. He tragically passed away in May 2015 after suffering a collapsed lung and a heart attack. Number 3. Joanna Jędrzejczyk head hematomas against Weili Zhang. In March of 2020, Joanna Jędrzejczyk suffered one of the nastiest head swellings the sport had seen. Facing Zhang Weili, the bout at UFC 248 went the distance, with both fighters inflicting an insane amount of damage on one another. In the 4th round, Jędrzejczyk's forehead swelled up due to a hematoma injury following a flurry of punches. Fans remarked she looked like an alien due to the hematoma she suffered on her forehead. After an overall 783 combined strikes landed from both fighters, it took 5 days for the swelling to go down. She said she suffered no significant injuries, but returned to Poland to have plastic surgery and has since made a full recovery. Number 2. Conor McGregor's ankle break vs. Dustin Poirier. Conor McGregor's trilogy fight with Dustin Poirier resulted in a gruesome injury to the Irishman. This fight was supposed to conclude who was the better fighter after both of them gained a victory over each other. However, the conclusion of the fight left everyone wondering how the fight would have ended. McGregor broke his leg toward the end of the first round, right after both fighters traded left hands. McGregor landed his broken leg and proceeded to fall to the ground. Because it happened so fast, nobody, including Poirier, would have known that the leg was broken. It looked more like McGregor got dropped by a good shot. Poirier proceeded to ground and pound McGregor while McGregor attempted to survive the remaining few seconds of the round. The cause of the leg break is still a mystery, as there was no visible cause in the fight, but there has been a bunch of theories. Poirier claimed that he felt something break in McGregor's leg when he checked it, but McGregor also said that there was no check. Either way, this was the worst way to end a fight. Number 1. Anderson Silva leg break vs. Chris Weidman. Anderson Silva, who has often been considered to be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, suffered a career-threatening injury when he faced Chris Weidman in a rematch at UFC 168. Chris Weidman won the first fight by knocking out a cocky Silva to become the middleweight champion in the process. In the second fight, Anderson was quite aggressive following his earlier loss and was troubling the All-American with his leg kicks. On one such occasion, Anderson went for a hard left low kick, which Weidman checked. What happened next is still one of the most heartbreaking moments in UFC history. The impact led to Silva breaking his shin bone. Anderson crumbled to the floor due to intense pain, and Weidman was awarded the winner by TKO. The Spider has sadly not been the same ever since. Well, those are 10 of the MMA fighters who got seriously hurt. Thank you for watching this video. That's all for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell.